whoever you are. I'm Dale McClenning. In order not to bore you, have you read any of my books, such as Innocent Earth? Let's see. I can't get it. How do I get it in the picture? There it is.
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then as kind of, I was just going to start at the very beginning of the first book, Innocent Earth. There are currently two others. Second is Divided Earth, which picks up like 28 years after Innocent Earth. And then there's a third, Rebel Earth, which picks up like 130 years later. Small background, Innocent Earth is about basically man's first encounter with aliens. And then the second book is about the consequences after they came, and the third book is their return. So I'll try to read a little, try to stop me, I don't know, 20 minutes or so in case you have a question. Okay, chapter 1. Arhus loved looking at the buildings of Jerusalem as he took the elevator to the 107th floor. The towers of glass and carbon nanotube glistened in the rising sun. The glass tube connected towers formed a ring around the green of the park far below. Leaves turned in the wind, showing dark to light green and back, like a carpet walked over by an invisible man who paced the floor. The sunlight flowing through the glass tubes made rainbows above the treetops. After a rain, the leaves would sparkle in the sun, adding to the effect. It was a few moments of pleasure before the start of work. How such beauty could come from a city that had once been erased by nuclear warheads 80 years ago made it more wondrous. Not until he was almost at the floor did Arhus notice that the others in the elevator were huddled in a group, 2 or 3, with their hands to one ear. They spoke in short, hushed tones to each other. Arhus's earpiece was off, so it would not intrude on his short morning revelry. As the elevator door opened, Arhus turned his earpiece on with a practiced shake of his head. He was immediately onset by a swarm of conversations. Normally, the conversations were calm enough that one could listen to 2 or 3 or even more at once with practice. Today, they were frantic to the point of blurring into each other. As Arhus walked into the cluster that was his work area, he spotted Joseph Budo standing in front of a large screen with a crowd of others. Walking up behind Budo, Arhus tapped him on the shoulder. Joseph turned around with a start. "What's happening?" Arhus asked. "Haven't you heard?" Joseph asked with wide eyes. "I had my connection off while I was like I do every morning," Arhus replied with a shrug. "Then you missed it." "Missed what?" "Titan monitoring station tracked an object coming earthward at 0.87 C. 0.87 C? Yeah, that means that our notification of the object got here a short time before the object itself." As Arhus eyes turned to widen. What goes that fast? "Nothing man-made, that's for sure." Joseph grabbed Arhus's shoulders. "It's our first contact with other life." Joseph was all but jumping up and down. Arhus just stood there, staring into space. "How could you be sure it's another life form?" Arhus asked Joseph, trying to get a view of the screen. "Maybe it's just a rock in space. Going 0.87 C? You have to be kidding." Joseph pleaded for sanity with his hands. "And it's headed toward Earth?" "Yes." After he said it, Joseph started to look a little worried. "Then let's hope it is intelligent, or we will not be around to correct each other," Arhus said. A murmur went up among the screen crowd. "Report is coming in from the moon station," ISO said. "Why can't they just look at it with a telescope?" Miranda asked. "It's going at almost the speed of light. The image doesn't get there much sooner than the object does. At best, it would look like a smear, or at worst, you wouldn't be able to find it in the sky." That was Karlstad. "Trust the German to know the details, even if he's a diplomat." "Quiet, what are you saying?" a woman asked. Cindy had the sharpest tongue in the floor when she wanted. Her 100 pounds of energy could be daunting even for her shorter than average height. To repeat, the man on the screen said in increased volume, the object has reached the vicinity of the moon and is slowed to 1/3 the speed of light and appears to continue to slow. We are trying to get an estimate now of where they believe the object is headed on the Earth, given that its trajectory does not change, of course. So when will it be here? Sylvia asked. At this rate, it's going not long. At the rate it's going, it's not long, Karlstad said. The object appears to be approximately 600 meters in diameter and round in nature. The man on the screen continued. The Space Authority has just released a picture of the object, which we are going to show you now. Because of the high speed of the object, the picture is a little fuzzy. The man's face was replaced by a blurred picture of a round object that appeared to be flat on the bottom and domed on the top, with a severe angle to the dome from the bottom to the top. It was made of smooth, shiny material with little variation in color. It's a flying saucer, Joseph cried out while pointing at the picture. It is, Sylvia answered. Who would have guessed? Arha said, glib on purpose. And where is it headed? Miranda asked. Arha turned from the screen and ran to his work area. Turning on his computer interface en route, he typed commands quickly, solely because it was faster than using a holographic interface. A globe appeared, followed by a moon and vectors representing the moon's path. A small pause while data was retrieved led to a new vector being displayed. A countdown appeared next to the head of the new vector, starting about 12 seconds. RSN called up a probabilistic algorithm. Areas on the globe became dark at first. Oceans and mountains, and then narrowing circle of oscillating dashes became even smaller. In a few seconds, the circle was small, and a name appeared next to it. Arhus ran back to the screen crowd. Here, it's coming here, he shouted. What? Joseph said, turning from the screen. Probabilistic analysis says that Jerusalem is the most likely place the ship is headed. Arhus found himself short of breath. Why do I suddenly want to be visiting my parents? Worry covered Joseph's face. We are now being told, the man on the screen was saying, the most likely destination object is Jerusalem. Explanations were heard as people headed to the windows or the elevators. Arhus let them pass before making his way to the window, not wanting to be trampled. The thing that greeted him was the sky above eastern Jerusalem, filled with clouds and lightning. Bunching together, the clouds looked like the white foam of a tidal wave marching across Jerusalem. The wave moved up and curled back instead of toward them as the ocean would. The tidal wave of compressed air flooded the city, obscuring the view of everything but the clouds that marked its progress. Droplets formed on the cooler windows. The clouds were pushed away as a large metallic object traveled through the middle of the lightning storm straight at the city. It traveled at a speed that seemed impossible to stop before entering downtown. People gasped, some holding on to each other. It's going to crash, a woman yelled in panic. Like I'm on this way to crash, Joseph asked in soft disbelief. People ran from the window. Arha stood and watched. If the ship crashed, it would pass through their building. There's no way they would move fast enough to get out of the way. Against all physics, the ship stopped in midair outside of town. The clouds continued to swirl in front of the ship in circles as large as the craft. The air that had been drawn behind this ship kept in momentum and passed along the ship, pulling clouds with it and cleansing the ship of the clouds. No breaths were heard until the clouds dispelled and revealed the ship hovering in place. A counting sigh of relief went out as everyone stood and stared at the ship. It felt as if the world stood still. Let's get out there, Joseph yelled. The statement was enough to cause half the people to scramble to the elevators. The rest stayed at the windows, staring at the ship. Arhus tried to find any markings, lights, or features on the ship that would give him some hint about the beings inside, but there were none. The entire surface was smooth. Even the outer edge had no rim, but smoothly transitioned under the ship. You couldn't even tell if the craft was spinning or not. Where did it stop? Miranda asked. I believe it's just outside the city proper, Karlstad answered, above what used to be called the Mount of Olives. Shit, Arhus said. He turned and ran back to his computer. What? It occurred to Arhus that the voice behind was Ayman. Before he could get to the computer, the media screen caught Arhus's attention. A map of Jerusalem was on the screen with a small silver circle. Arhus ran to the screen and stared. Damn, Arhus said as he walked in what he thought was a soft voice. Ayman ran up behind her. What's up? The ship is hovering over the Mount of Olives. So? That's where the Bible says Christ ascended to heavens and would return, Ahaz replied. You a neo-Unitarianism or something? Ayman asked. No, I practice virtualism. Ahaz said it with as he walked back to the window. Then how do you know? Ayman followed Ahaz. It helps to understand the language to understand the cultural background. Christ crosses several cultures and thus languages. I speak, Ahaz had made it back to the window. Clouds had settled down and started responding to the winds that normally drove them. The ship hung around among them and moved immobile. What are they waiting for? Ayman asked. He stared at the ship. Maybe it takes a while to adjust after stopping so fast. He wanted to say before anything else. Maybe they were waiting to see if we attack. Maybe waiting for us to say something, Ayman said. Make our greetings first. How would we know what we do? How would we do that? Ahaz asked. You're asking me? I'm not a protocol specialist. I just schedule meetings. So schedule a meeting with the aliens, will you? Ahaz gave a little laugh at the statement. You have their contact information? Ayman shot back. Touche, touche. As the man watched, her eyes were distracted by the movement of other building elevators going back and forth to the ground. The elevators were packed. Where are they going? Ayman asked. Maybe they want to get as close to the ship as they can, or be the first to greet our visitors when they come out, Ahaz offered. I think I will let someone else do that job, Ayman said it with a stutter. Just in case. In case of what? Exactly. A light started to appear at the very top of the craft. The light was stark white and as bright as an arc light. The light grew out of the craft until it was a spherical beacon, a ball of pure, intense light resting on the pinnacle. The sphere was too bright to see inside. Both men held their breaths. We return. The voice filled Ahaz's head. More than just filled, it pushed outward from the middle of the skull. There was pain. He became dizzy and couldn't see because the voice occupied all thought. He felt his knees hit the floor. Covering his ears with his hands did nothing to lessen the intensity of the words that echoed back and forth inside his skull again and again, as if they were phantom images. When the intensity subsided, he found himself prone, his forehead touching the floor and his hands on top of his head. Fighting dizziness, Ahaz made the effort to raise his hand until he was in a sitting position. Everyone left in the room was on the floor, also, some prone and some on their backs. One exception was Miranda, who had somehow wedged herself between the pillar and the window. She looked uncomfortable, leading Ahaz to decide to help her first. Rising to his feet would have been impossible if the windows weren't right there to use as support. Small steps and lots of leaning got him across the floor to Miranda. By the time he got there, he was feeling well enough to stand on his own and lift the woman out of her trap. Thank you, Miranda said in a whisper as Ahaz helped her stand. Trusting she could cope, Ahaz turned back to the others. Most were stirring, a few had been sitting up. All were holding their heads as if waking from a record-breaking bender. Ayman was attempting to stand and make his way to Ankmal, the elderly man who specialized in southern Pacific dialects. Ahaz made his way there too, but by the time he arrived, almost falling once, Ayman had turned the man over. Blood seeped from the man's nose. Ayman put his finger to the man's throat and then laid his head onto the man's chest. He brought his head back up slowly after 3 seconds. He's dead, Ayman said. How? Someone next to him asked. Ahaz was still too dazed to recognize the voice. His heart couldn't stand the strain, I guess, someone else said. Probably more than a brain aneurysm, Ayman said. That voice was extremely loud. If it was a voice, Ahaz asked. Why didn't it break the windows? They're pretty sturdy, someone said. But sound would have had come through the windows, Ahaz replied. It'd be a good question for the engineers, Ayman said. Placing Ankmal's hand on his chest, he said, I guess we'll just leave him here until the medics show up. I'll put in a call. Ahaz registered his voice as Carl said it, after a prolonged second of mental processing. All that just to say I have come, Cindy commented. That's not what he said, Ayman said, looking at Cindy as he stood. He said, we arrive. I didn't hear either of those, Arha said, furrowing his brow. It's easy enough to settle, Cindy said, turning toward the workstations, smugness in her voice. We'll just check the building's noise monitors. If they pick up bird activity on the roof, I'm sure they would have picked up that, Ayman said, following her. Ars did a visual check of everyone else before following. No one else appeared to be suffering more than the rest, and all were recovering well. Whatever it was, he thought, it didn't seem to last long. Cindy was busy swiping her fingers across the holographic interface. Her face contorted as if in a struggle. It has to be here. Somewhere, she stated. What's wrong? Arhus asked. We can't find a record of the words from the aliens, Ayman replied. That's not possible. We all heard it, Arhus said. There's no record. All I was finding is bird noise. Cindy kept moving her finger on the hologram. Bird calls were the only sounds from the speakers. Could the aliens have some way of generating sound only people can hear? Ayman asked. The sensors pick up everything, even stuff we can't hear, Cindy said. I just don't understand. Aris put his elbow on the hand in his hand and his hand under his chin. We're missing something here. We're missing a lot, Ayman said. We're dealing with a freaking alien. Who knows what we're dealing with? Ayman was panting as he spoke. Aris began to worry he would hyperventilate. Cindy's movements were getting quicker. Her breath was getting faster. Her face was getting red. We all need to calm down, Arhus thought. What World Council department would handle this? Arhus asked aloud. That's a good question, I replied, straightening up from looking at the display. I wonder if that's even been decided yet. Computer, Cindy said to the display. Who has been put in charge of contacting the alien ship? A commission is being formed, a voice from the speaker said. Many departments have volunteered to be part of the commission. More like they were insisting, Ayman said. I am sure there are a lot of people who think this would make their careers. I should know. I deal with them every day. Computer, Cindy continued. Are security forces included? Security is asking to be included, the voice replied. Of course they are, Arha said. Why would they expect any different? Who's the head of the commission? Cindy asked. At the moment, it appears that the Vice Commissioner, Arlen Morissette, will be in charge of the commission. Ayman groaned. Great, we're doomed. Just because you don't like the guy, Arha said, doesn't mean he's not competent. The man's a pain in the ass, Ayman said, emphasizing the last word. Demanding, yes. Particular, yes. Both might be good for what he will be dealing with. Arha tapped his finger on his chin, not thinking about the commission. The display changed to a man's face. In fact, all the displays changed to the same face at the same time. Rosario Cashel, department head of the translator's office in Jerusalem and their supervisor. His face looked like it had been sealed airtight, but then that's how it always looked. His eyes scanned back and forth across the screen. Where is everybody? Rosario asked. Someone outside, Cindy replied. Uncle's dead. Dead? Ayman thinks the voice caused a brain aneurysm. We called the medic. Shit. The last thing we need is to be losing people right now. I'm calling everybody back. The whole World Council is going nuts. I need some people at the Central Committee room now. I guess you three are it. You can see Rosario's hand displayed, pointing at them. I'm not even a translator, Ayman said. His head bowed back as if his eyes wide. Doesn't matter. You speak several languages, so you're assigned. Not like any of them speak alien anyway. Now go. Rosario's face disappeared from the screen. We better get there right away, Arha said, resigned. He disconnected his electronic interface from its dock on the workstation and placed it on his wrist on the way to the elevator. Ayman and Cindy already had theirs on. When the lift car arrived, several medics got out. Cindy pointed the medics for an mall as she got out. Okay, should I stop or keep going?
It's entirely up to you.
Oh,
Uh,
I wonder if our guest had any questions.
Oh, no questions.
Oh, okay. Then I'll do 5 more minutes then. When all three were inside, Arhus told the elevator, top floor. It's going to be a chaos up there, Ayman said. It's chaos everywhere, I'm sure, Cindy replied. They should have sent someone else. Thanks a lot, Ayman said. Not you, stupid. I mean myself. Drain crossed her face as she fidgeted in place. I hate dealing with these people. Any people, actually. Oh, sorry. Ayman said, more resigned. Not that you should be either, Cindy said without looking at him. Ayman laughed. I am sure everyone is going to be on edge, Ara said in a calm voice, his meaning manner kicking in. Stay calm, translate the best you can, but only when asked. And don't translate anything that sounds like something that the speaker wouldn't be saying. Yeah, Cindy said with a small huff. We don't need another Geneva incident. Is that the one that doomed computer translations? Ayman asked. Yes. Our biggest job is knowing what not to translate, Ara said. The lift car slowed to a halt and the door opened to a short, wide hallway. 6 security personnel stood outside a double door, announcing that they were in the right place. Nowhere else warranted that level of security. Arhus led the way to the doors. One of the security guards waved his hand in front of Arhus's face, checked his interface, and opened one of the doors. Maneuver was repeated for all 3. Arhus entered the room in less confusion than he had expected. About 20 people were already in the room, and more were arriving from other doors. A man in an immaculate dark green suit walked up to him and raised his eyebrows. The realization that he had not dressed for the occasion flashed into Arhus's mind, but then most people in the room hadn't either. Translators? He told the man, who nodded once and then went back the way he had come. Arhus waited for the others to catch up with him. Let's take a position over there. When they need us, they will call us over. Taking a position against the wall that had no doors, Arhus scanned the crowd. The representatives in the room were higher in the organization than he had used to servicing. Thought caused a twitch he had to consciously suppress. The room was filled with commissioners and their aides. Senior Commissioner Mai Kuto stepped to one side of the round table, picking up the gavel and hit its pad several times. All talking stopped as the commissioners turned toward Kuto. I know we are not all here yet, Mai said, but we need to get started. The others will have to be briefed as they arrive. If everyone would please take a seat. Mai sat in a chair next to her that an assistant had pulled out. The other commissioners took seats around the table. They seemed to leave as much spare space between each other as possible. Arhus noted a grouping of political interest groups, such as the African Commission and India. The North American ambassador was here, but the United States representative was not in attendance. Then and other absences made Arhus wonder how bad things were outside the building. I'm not sure you have all heard, Mai started. The commission is being formed to contact our visitors, if that is possible. The makeup of that commission is not our task here, she said in a firm voice. Our task at the moment is to decide what appropriate actions should be taken due to our visitors' arrival. Should we not first, a man sitting in the African Confederation's group interrupted, determine what exactly was said? The question seemed to cause my pause. We all heard it. Yes, we did, the man continued. But from my discussions with others, we did not all hear the same words. I'm not sure that matters, I countered. We have heard the same basic message. Yes, but why did we all hear it differently? The man's hand rested on the table with one finger pointing up in the air. And more importantly, does different people hearing it differently mean that the message was meant to be different to them? We're not here to discuss philosophy, Mai said, her voice becoming more pointed. We need to set what kind of response will be allowed to this encounter. This is not philosophy, another member of the African Commission piped in. Arhus recognized as Kwawa Tamil. How can we decide how to respond if this visitor is sending different messages to different cultures? And maybe more importantly, how is this even possible? It's simple, the North American master said. It spoke different languages at the same time. So loud? Kawa asked. How would he have done so without each of us hearing several languages at once? I don't know what kind of technology aliens have. Discussion, as Arhus expected, was getting heated. Multiple voices started speaking at once. To Arhus, people looked worried. The representatives were better at hiding it, but several of their aides almost looked sick from worry. Arhus's brain had continued to work on the problem even before Rosario had contacted them. 3 people who worked in the same office in the same vicinity had heard different words. How is that possible? Arhus's brain came to a conclusion. Breaking all protocol, Arhus stepped forward until he was next to the table. Mai was trying to control the conversation chaos. It was a tough fight. Gravel hit the pad again. On the 4th hit, the conversation stopped. Everyone, please, she shouted. This is getting us nowhere. Ambassador Miguel Montoya spoke from Spain, sat across the table from Arhus, looking directly at him. You have something to say, young man? Clearing his voice, Arhus said, we didn't hear our visitor say anything. What do you mean? Mai asked. The words are not communicated through our auditor's senses, Arhus replied. Then how did we hear him? Mai asked, suspicious in her voice. We were communicated telepathically. And I'm about out of time, so I guess I'll stop there.
Nicely done.